Hello, patrons. This is Marianne from Revealing Light Tarot. I want to progress patrons' requests now. I'm gone to Barb's request on Steve Bannon and the Catholic Church. I feel that Steve Bannon's name has been coming up a lot lately. Let me just clear this space here. Sorry, I do use sprays because my husband actually renovated this home and he won't let me burn candles. I can do oil burners with a tea light candle in the bottom, but he won't let me burn sage. I guess, probably set off the alarms anyway. So instead I've reverted to these sprays as a way of getting the space cleared. Okay, so all right, and they're not too strong either. So with essential oils, it can sometimes give me a headache, but these aren't too strong. Now back to Barb. I do digress there. Now Barb has asked about the real motivation of Steve Bannon and him trying to take on the Catholic Church. So she's talking about Steve Bannon coming out and questioning the Catholic Church. Now, the current Pope, I feel, is more inclined, and this is tied up with this whole idea of what is progressive and what is conservative, I feel. Bannon is challenging, this is my impressions, and I must admit I haven't given this much thought until I started the reading, and it just came to me. Because Bannon is challenging. That's all he does. He challenges. And so he's shaking things up. And there are people who actually are drawn to the thing that is being to the actual shaking up, and go, great, because it is connected with their power. And so if we dig down into what is actually happening here, Bannon knows that by shaking up traditional structures, he's going to really bring people along. He's going to gain a few fans. And so this is what the challenging of the Vatican is all about. The Pope will come out and rightly so talk about needing to help immigrants, needing to consider that they come with nothing, needing to consider that they're more often than not starving, that they're coming from war-torn countries, and they're coming to the door. Are you going to turn them away? It's like the beggar coming to the inn. It's like Jesus, Mary and Joseph, if you want to subscribe to the Catholic religion, knocking on the inn door and being sent away. So this is around the foundation of the Catholic Church's compassion for others that do not have as much. Now enter Steve Bannon. What's he trying to shake up? He's again coming back to this nationalist Catholic approach that Barb points out here. Let's pull some cards because I think this is quite interesting, and I feel that there is. I want to also go back to why people participate in this shaking up by someone who hasn't got much to offer. What did Steve Bannon offer during his life? A few failed documentaries, a bit of a foray into filmmaking that wasn't successful. He never quite made it. So the basis, and I go back to the basis and the intent, and now I'm getting a bit on my soapbox here. I have to be careful not to do that because I need to have compassion for the Steve Bannons of the world. Sorry, I'm just... this is kind of a little bit of a bizarre reading, I'm sorry, but it's just stuff that I've been thinking about lately. Steve Bannon, yes, the truth. The truth of it is that in shaking things up, he is empowering himself to compensate for things that haven't gone quite well enough in the past for him. He's finding a niche market, really, is what he's doing, because this is all about, it's a really quite a bit of a sinister form of marketing. Now, what is it? The basis here is not that his fandom is ignorant of the facts. It's not that, because no amount of information will turn this fandom away from or get them to acknowledge what's actually going on here. It's around his fandom needing to be empowered themselves, and so I go to the theme of this reading, which is about power, and our attitudes to power, our need for power, power and the ego, because it is tied up with the ego. But let's have a look at what I like to do here is actually it's almost like an investigation, and let's have a look what because it's wider than this. I'm seeing this at a psychological level, but of course Bannon is also seeing this about power, and the aim of power is to extend out, to spread, and to bring people along with them. So let's pull some cards. So the question Barb is posing is what's behind Bannon's latest attacks on the Catholic religion and on the Pope. Pope hasn't been a fan of Trump. He's come out and been critical. So what is behind Bannon's taking on the Catholic Church with this national Catholic approach? It's almost like make Catholicism great again. It's that kind of thing. Okay, what is behind this latest move from Bannon here, taking on the Catholic Church? Okay, it's exactly that. It's the Magician card. It so often comes up with the Republicans. It's around this how can I say it, manipulation. And it's also about actualising an agenda. For Bannon, it's a nationalistic agenda, and there's no safe haven from his nationalistic agenda. He understands the psyche of his fandom. He understands that this will work with a certain I guess, type of fandom, and it is the fundamentalist section of the church. So in other words, he's seeking to politicise the Catholic Church. Does it ever end, people? Does it ever end? Steve Bannon, Donald Trump, the Mercers, the Koch brothers? Does it ever end? All right, now what is challenged by, which is interesting, is the truth. So in a way, what Bannon and what Trump is doing, it's almost like we're slowly catching up to the magician's tricks. We're slowly becoming aware, but we weren't fast enough. We weren't quick enough. We were shocked. We were shaken up ourselves. So while Bannon was shaking things up and Trump was shaking things up and the Freedom Caucus was shaking things up and the right-wingers in Australia were shaking things up, we weren't quick enough to understand what exactly was going on. So Barb, thanks for this question, because it's a microcosm of many other things that are going on at this point in time. We are this magician is being challenged because of the truth. Right, isolation is the foundation of the reading. So again, I at the beginning of this, I talked about politicizing factions within the church. The ultimate game, or the ultimate end game here, is to isolate the Pope. What a grandiose agenda here. But at another level, there's also reflection and introspection for us to do around power. It's a theme that has been coming forward time and time again for me in the last 2 weeks. It is power, the ego. We are vulnerable when we think of power. We associate that with the ego. And so there's lessons for all of us. There's reflection for all of us here. Now, disappointment is in the past here. So, Bannon could argue that he's actually been disappointed, like he was disappointed with Obama and some of these more progressive policies, that this allows also vulnerabilities into the system as well. And so this again is motivating Bannon. Does he have a fair point? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. That is for scholars to think about. When we move too far in the one direction and we don't take the middle ground, or if there is a need to move in one direction, what does that mean for us? I think there's reflection needed here. Now, the potential of the reading here is that Bannon also these sort of moves can only work when a system is vulnerable, and so there is a couple of layers here. The issue was that the Catholic Church is in moving to the, I guess, to the left, or not being central, moving away from fundamentalism. Bannon saw that as a vulnerability and a weakness. But there's also another layer here too, as the potential of the present situation is that those that are making these sort of moves with the majority slowly waking up, they're actually going to be wounded. They're not actually going to be successful. So that's the potential of the present moment. Now, the immediate future is unity here. And this card comes forward so many times that the answer to all of this is not disenfranchising, it's actually unity and listening. So the Catholic Church has been around for a long time, and they would be onto this already. They would be listening to the various I don't know what their structure is, cardinals, I guess. They would be talking about what Bannon's trying to do, and they would be moving forward. The Catholic Church has quite a powerful communications and marketing arm in its own right. And so, Bannon's taking on a system that's been around for a long time. Is he going to win? It's suggesting that we're waking up. Now, at the moment, I would say that this has been Bannon's actions and what the Catholic Church is witnessing across the world has caused them to reevaluate. Are they going to move a little bit more to the right? I don't know. The atmosphere around is justice. Okay, justice. Reevaluating to reach their goals and justice here. Okay, if we look at what this means for Bannon, is Bannon reevaluating? Is Bannon frightened of justice here? Justice catching up with him? Because this onslaught that occurred in 2000, it would have been brewing for quite some time, in implementing and rolling out their campaign, if you like, they had source funding from nefarious sources. They agreed to things in order to get that funding, that power and that influence. And so as we're catching up with them, so too is justice. And this is the thing, when you see a way forward and you start to manipulate in order to get there, what are you doing? You've got to be very careful that you're on solid ground legally. So I feel that there's a reevaluation here at this point in time. This has come through all my readings around these far right groups and organisations and donors, etc. Now, at the moment, the Knight of Pentacles, what was behind Bannon's nationalistic approach, taking on the Pope, the Knight of Pentacles. At the end of the day, for someone like Bannon, it is around money. Sorry about that saw, that chainsaw. It's around his own personal fortunes as well. It's how he makes his living. But at the end of the day, what was around it, I do feel that there is a chaos agenda with all of this. This is to shake up and end particular structures, and this is about a new world order. However, this is also about Bannon as well. As the soldier of truth catches up, this is potentially could be what he's looking at. I did read something the other day where he's been involved. Yes, it was in suggesting to Sally Yates, I think, or was it Don McGahn, it was actually the FBI. So Bannon was involved in a conversation in the White House suggesting to Andrew McCabe that, and others, there was another FBI staff member there as well, suggesting that they probably need to get onto Trump's team. Okay, so that wasn't in the Mueller report. There's now some kind of question mark as to why it wasn't in the Mueller report. However, we're talking about the Catholic Church, shaking up these structures, a new world order. And the New World Order, of course, has income sources for many. Power. The Two of Swords, though, suggesting that what's at stake is quite substantial and significant, and that decisions need to be made about allowing this kind of shake up, these kind of forces to really propel world orders, and there's a destructive aspect here, and so I feel that at this point in time there is everybody, including the Catholic Church, needing to take a good hard look, because what's hidden from our view is the Eight of Swords. When people feel restricted, they're going to take action to get out of the ropes that bind them. And sometimes that action is not always going to be benign. So we would hope that it would be benign, but it's not always benign, as we can see from what has occurred in the last 3 to 4 years, particularly the last 2 years. So the Catholic Church, the follow-on, did he succeed? Is he going to succeed in moving the church more to the right, moving it more towards fundamentalism? And of course, I'm thinking of Alabama just about to pass a law that bans all abortions, and I'm thinking that the fear there that's being expressed around Kavanaugh, and I'll read on that, the Supreme Court overturning Roe and Wade. Now, what that means for me here in Australia is if this movement gets traction in the US, this will spread to other Western democracies. So it is quite concerning. But back to Barb's question here. Will this cause the church to move more toward fundamentalism, shaking up world orders? From where I'm sitting, I'm thinking, no, we can't go backwards. We have to go forwards. It's just that nobody's plotted that way yet. But there are brilliant minds that are thinking about this at this point in time. And so, what's likely to be the outcome of all of this in time will be a stronger, more fair, more unified, I would hope, society. All right, so will Bannon's shaking up of the Catholic Church, will it drive the church more to the right? No, because the majority is not with Bannon. It's as simple as that. If you don't have the majority, if you don't take the majority along with you, then it ends up looking like an abuse of power. And this is the signifier card, an abuse of power. Again, I come back to the power theme. Why do people abuse their power? They do so in ignorance, and then they also do so willfully because of the demands of the ego. And the collective ego as well. Okay, so all learning at the collective consciousness level, it does make you tired, doesn't it, sometimes? However, what's challenging, and this is where we have to resurrect ourselves, what's challenging the abuse of power is the Ace of Cups, which is new emotional starts. New emotional starts. Now that's interesting. We wonder why the Democrats, we wonder why the Australian Labor Party is going to actually, I think, do well in this upcoming election. It's because we don't want to see this abuse of power, which operates for a few, operates for the elite, because at the bottom of it all is money. We actually want fairness, and we want everybody included. We want to see emotional integrity. We want to see values. We want to preserve civic law and order. We want to preserve community. We want to preserve all those higher order things that often are trampled down in this kind of agenda. So, does the church understand that? My word, it does. Okay, so the Nine of Cups is suggesting an abundance here in some way. Will the church move more to the right? This can be a yes card, but I'm not picking that up. There are multiple aspects to the Nine of Cups. It's also coming forward as the Merchant as well. So they need to consider, and here I come back with a little bit of cynicism. I'm sorry. They need to consider the majority, and if they move too far to the right, they will simply become a fringe dweller. And they don't want that. Okay, so something is ending here in the past with the Death card. And I'm picking up, it's early in the reading, I better bring the laptop down, it's early in the reading here. But I'm picking up that the church's dwindling congregation is linked here in some way. So I'm picking up a retreat, the Four of Swords here, and this is around stepping back and needing to reassess things. In the immediate future, we've got the Six of Wands, so we've got a victory card here. Victory for whom is the question? Victory for justice. Okay, justice, here is the issue. And here is the solution. The church needs to always act with justice, because if it doesn't, then, it will just isolate itself. The environment around those suggesting that they're reevaluating after the Bannon attack. They understand what's happening. The hopes and the fears is around new starts, new income sources here. They don't want to alienate their congregation. I don't feel they've come out with a finite decision yet. This is suggesting here some kind of smokescreen, some kind of difficulty making a choice. And I feel that internally within the church this is the card of faction fighting. So, and standing one's ground and defending oneself. What's hidden from our view is new beginnings. So that Bannon's attacks here, the burning of Notre Dame, the Catholic Church is undergoing a shake-up really at the moment, and they're still deciding what future direction they're going to go. In their re-evaluating, but they're very concerned with justice here. I feel that they understand the need to bring everybody along with them. I feel that they understand that the Bannon way is the wrong way, and that bringing the majority with them and focusing on those equality, justice, opening the door of the in here, which is a fundamental teaching of the Catholic Church, allowing that person who doesn't have much in being of service to others, is really possibly where they will come out. But these are just my views interpreted from this reading. So, interesting reading on the Catholic Church. Barb also wants to know if John Paul I was assassinated. I think that we'll put that one in this reading. Or she said, did Jesus Christ actually die on the cross? I'm a little bit too tired to do that reading. But we can. We might just ask if John Paul I got assassinated, because this could link back to the fundamental movement that Bannon is trying to tap into, because of course people like Bannon and Trump understand only too well that what they're doing with this interrupting, this shaking up. It's a bit more than interrupting. It's actually shaking up, causing chaos and destruction of world orders. They understand that violence can accompany this sort of thing. So I'm just linking that with this reading. Okay, let's ask Spirit, was John Paul I assassinated? Was John Paul I assassinated? John Paul I assassinated. Okay, so I'm getting someone with the Ten of Swords. I'm getting the Ten of Swords. Painful endings. Was John Paul I assassinated? Not nice images that were coming forward there. So we've got the foundation of the reading is restriction, bound and gag. Not a nice image here either. Challenged by commerce and expansion, potentially wanting to move something forward here. There are overseas links here. Whew, okay. I actually got images of like rivers of, yeah, anyway, I won't go into too much detail. Not nice images, quite violent images. Yeah, right. Okay, so the Queen of Swords here. The Queen of Swords is someone quite strong. This could be, yeah, this could be some kind of movement or faction within the church here. I don't know a lot about John Paul, Pope John Paul the First, or the Second. Sorry, John Paul the Second, because I haven't paid too much attention to the Catholic religion for quite some time. But suggesting that there was hard work here, a bit of a, yeah, was the church struggling at the time? Is my impression. The King of Swords here, an authoritarian coming in. We talked about fundamentalism, and we've got the Ten of Cups here, which is the family card. The autocrat, the emperor. John Paul II, was he? Gosh, I can't even remember him. Did they want a more autocratic approach? Yeah, they certainly wanted a new start. It's indicating that potentially there was some kind of foul play. The Nine of Pentacles, to grow the church in some way. And the King of Cups here. This is really, I think, to get a new leader is what I'm seeing. Someone who got strength and endurance. The King of Cups, strength and endurance. And we've got balance. Okay, what's hidden from our view is loss, and it's loss of money. Is it beyond, I'm just going to look at his face, is it beyond the realm of possibilities that he may have been assassinated in order for someone new to step in? Is that where we're going with this reading? I just want to have a look at a picture of him. John Paul II. Sorry, I said the first. Second. Ah, right. I do remember him now. I'm not aware of his actual policies and doctrines, but there appears to be something here that might suggest that they wanted a more autocratic approach to the church. Yeah, okay. But I don't think that succeeded. I feel that they wanted it. There were certain elements here that wanted this more authoritarian aspect to the church, but they didn't succeed. In choosing the new pope, they actually got someone who was actually quite benign in this regard, who actually showed immense strength. Is that the current pope? Perhaps Barb, you can chime in here. And brought forward a more balanced approach. So the John Paul II's successor wasn't what the fundamentalists actually envisaged. That's what this reading seems to suggest. So possibility. It's always a possibility that that you can have these sorts of things happening at these sort of levels. The machinations of both government and church and those institutions can be quite, in some ways, can be nefarious and very complex and very entrenched. When we have all of that, you get the potential for something like this to happen. So within the realms of possibility, but it didn't work. I'm seeing they didn't get what they wanted with a new pope. All right, I'm going to, which is encouraging, which is showing that the system's not completely corrupt. All right, wow, enough. 29 minutes, enough. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in, patrons.